Welcome to the MLB Network Podcast. This episode is presented by New Balance. We got now Gregg Caserta, Anthony Recker from the World Trade Center, where tonight there is a Subway Series watch party in preparation for the Yankees and the Mets. Reck, we'll get into your experience being part of the Subway Series. But to me, one of the things coming into this, last year, Shohei Ohtani was the number one story in baseball because of his record-setting contract. This year, it should be Juan Soto, and yet he's being trumped by what Aaron Judge has done through the quarter mark of the season.
It's pretty incredible. A guy like Aaron Judge, right? You feel like he's probably had his best season, right? A couple of years ago, 62 home runs, and you think to yourself, okay, there's no way he can top that. And then he comes out this year, after some of the injuries that he had last year, some of the things he dealt with the early, non-performance, and got off to a slow start. Then had a great second half. I want to call it second half. Last 4 or 5 months of the season, he's come out this year on absolute fire. To see someone have the ability to not only put together the types of ABs that he's always put together, right? He's always had a pretty good eye, chases occasionally, but for the most part, put together good ABs. The way he's done it this year, putting together great ABs, making contact, chase rates are down, contact is up. He has always obviously made incredibly hard contact. All those things, he's putting it together, and you're seeing a season right now. It's very early, but you're seeing a season that we haven't seen in baseball in at least 20 years in a time frame when things were different back then.
The Subway Series started in 1997. This is just the third time that both the Mets and Yankees are in sole possession of first place, and Juan Soto's return, oh boy.
There are some players in Major League Baseball, in other sports, that transcend the game, and they have a magnetism where they bring fandom from outside of the sport into the sport, and then it crosses teams, right? That can happen when their favorite player or a player of this magnitude signs with another team. Now, for it to happen from a Yankees to the Mets, and for that kind of a fan to change allegiances, that's special, but some players have that ability, and clearly Juan Soto is one of them.
So, Reck, you were part of 3 different Mets teams from 13 to 15. You got to play in some Subway Series games. Yep. You got to watch some Subway Series games. Was it different? Was it more meaningful? Did they mean as much as those games against the Braves, the Phillies, or the Cardinals?
I think they did. I mean, anytime, even though at that time, 13 and 14, we weren't as competitive of a team, right? The Mets. Anytime you got that opportunity to play the cross-town, cross-city rivalry, the Subway Series, it wasn't just – you didn't feel it on the field or in the clubhouse, right? It was on the streets of the city before you went to the field. You had people coming up to you saying, like, go beat those Yankees tonight. Let's go Mets, all that stuff.
All right, and then on the flip side, you had Yankees fans that came up to you that would give you a hard time.
Of course, you got a little bit of that, but I try to block that out. Sure. I don't remember that as well. But that was really what gave you the energy. And then you get in the games, and things start happening, and you're in a close game, and you end up with down 1 run with Mariano Rivera on the mound, and you get a Murphy. Murphy gets on, David gets a hit, Duda gets a hit, and you win a game on a walk-off against the greatest closer of all time, against the Yankees in a rivalry. Those kinds of things stick out in your mind, and types of things you're never going to forget, and it's really cool and special to be a part of something like that.
So the 2000 World Series, Yankees win it in 5 games. They complete the three-peat, but what a lot of people forget is that all 5 games in that series were decided by 2 runs or less. It was incredibly tight, and we have Todd Zeal on the podcast this week, and a lot of people probably forget he hit 400 in that World Series. So while we talked to him about it, and he's thinking back and he's trying to forget about, the catch and everything like that, you remember Piazza and Clemens, but that was a really well-played World Series.
A lot of people forget that after that series, Derek Jeter said, that's a really good Mets team. He complimented that Mets team and said that was the toughest team that he faced on their entire run. Through those 4 World Series in 5 years, he said that was the toughest team because of the way they played in those 5 games. It may have only been 5 games, but he felt like every game could have gone one way or the other, and they were lucky to win that series. And I think that's what stands out. I mean, there was obviously a lot of emotion and energy because of the Roger Clemens and the Mike Piazza. And, I mean, what a heck of a rivalry that ended up being, for that to happen earlier in the season and then for it to all unfold then, later in the fall. it was, I mean, you can't write it better than that. But for that to happen the way that it did, then to have such incredible games with each other, and of course, the Yankees end up taking it. One team had to win, one team had to lose, ended up going the Yankees' way. But to Derek Jeter's point, it could have gone either way, and that was a heck of a series.
So for my entire life, I'm born in '88. I grew up in Bergen County, New Jersey, an hour from here, less than an hour from Yankees Stadium. Grew up a Yankees fan. So for my entire life, for the most part, the Yankees have been the big brother. And that's really what it's been, where it's like, all right, you pat the Mets on the head a little bit. Now it doesn't feel that way anymore. There's been a seismic shift in what is now a much more competitive rivalry. It starts with Steve Cohen, it extends to David Stearns, and I think Carlos Mendoza is as good of a skipper as anybody right now.
I mean, when Steve bought the team, that was primarily what I understood as the goal, right? We're not going to be the little brother anymore.
Sure. We're
going to be the big kid on the block, and you're going to have to fight us for supremacy in this city. And you see it, I remember when he took ownership, it was, 3 to 5 years, we're going to win a World Series. I remember all those quotes. I was with SNY at the time. I was doing some of those interviews. And so it's interesting to see where we are right now, because despite the fact that they haven't won one yet, the Mets have steadily been on the incline. Yeah. With 1 year, 23, where they kind of, hit a little bit of a valley. They had a great year in 22 with Buck, not so good year in 23, but then back up on the upswing, which happens. Those kinds of things happen throughout the course of an organization's rise. You could see this organization taking the necessary steps, building things properly, building them internally. Do you remember a time that the Mets had this many prospects at times that they could call on?
Sure.
When, we need an outfielder. Let's go down and get Gilbert or Drew. Like, they have names right now. Pitching, like, where do we go? Do we go to Jonah Tong? Do we go to – they have names that they can pull from and they can bring up to the big leagues. They've built things the right way, and that starts with Steve and what he's done in infiltrating this organization and building it from the bottom to the top. And now you're starting to see some of the fruits of that come to the top, and now you've got a very competitive Mets team.
Coming up on the MLB Network Podcast presented by New Balance, former Met Todd Zeile stops by and talks about his memories from playing in the Subway Series. Here on the MLB Network Podcast, Gregg Caserta, Anthony Recker, and Todd Zeile coming to you from the Subway Series watch party down here at the World Trade Center. Todd, a current SNY analyst. You've been covering the team for the last few years, but we go back a little bit further. 16-year vet, 2 very special years with the Mets, a 2000 National League champion. And those games, to me, were defined by vitriol. There was some attitude there. It stemmed from Clemens and Piazza, but now we've got this new age, and there's a different dimension here with Juan Soto now playing for the Mets and coming back to the Bronx.
Yeah, you mentioned the years that I was involved in the Subway Series, and early on, there was a lot of excitement that surrounded it. The city got really into the rivalry, even though the players felt like, hey, you're playing another team. You don't really hate the guys on the other side of the diamond. And then Roger changed all that, right? So there was, a little
I love
venom.
how you just called him out right there.
I mean,
Roger changed.
He knows.
Roger, come on. Roger changed all
that.
that. He changed the dynamic for a while. And now I don't think since then have you had the same sort of intensity. Both teams are very good this season. Both teams win in different ways, as we had been talking about off the camera.
Todd, when I think of my experiences in the Subway Series, I think of a couple of moments, right? And the one that sticks out the most is Mariano Rivera. His last season, he comes in to Citi Field. We have a whole big ceremony like everybody else did for him, which he completely deserved. We give him some gifts, and then at the end of the game, we force his first career blown save without recording an out. And we end up beating the Yankees. I think it was Lucas Duda with the game-winning hit. But it was Daniel Murphy, David Wright, Lucas Duda, back-to-back. Are there any moments, like specific moments that stick out in the Subway Series to you?
Wow. First of all, I think maybe if people knew that he might blow a save, they'd give him some presents earlier. I mean, they only waited like 20 years to give him the presents. Look, I mean, there were some games that Mariano closed out in Subway Series that I was involved in 25 years ago. Obviously, Clemens hitting Mike was a huge moment that everybody remembers. And then leading up to the World Series, I mean, who could have anticipated that moment in sports at the All-Star, right before the All-Star break, was going to be reunited in such an odd way with the Piazza-Clemens matchup again and the broken bat and all that stuff. But aside from that, I remember feeling kind of surreal watching Doc Gooden take the mound against me as a Met in a Yankee uniform. I remember that feeling very odd, and he pitched the first game of the doubleheader that we did, the day-night doubleheader, one at Shea, one at Yankee Stadium, which was in and of itself an interesting, bizarre moment, and that led to the Roger game. So I think besides the World Series, which I blocked some of that stuff out, Timo Perez, I hear a lot. Besides that, some of those things.
They show that to you up there often. I remember that.
Some of those nuance, things that happen that, are just special. And then the last one we've got to all, remember as guys that were there is Robin Ventura putting on the Mike Piazza gear and tarp sliding, and
classic.
That was a galvanizing moment for our team as well as it was something great for that Subway Series.
The two ballparks that are no longer with us, Shea Stadium, Old Yankee Stadium. Can you describe what those atmospheres were like? Mid-May, weather's finally perfect, and you got this series coming up.
Yeah, you know what? I think at Shea Stadium, you could feel the electricity. The music seemed a little louder. When anything good happened for the Mets during those. By the way, there's a lot of Yankee fans at Shea Stadium, and there's a lot of Mets fans at Yankee Stadium, which makes it kind of fun because you see the rivalry going on in the crowd. But the way Shea used to shake when it would be full to capacity and something would happen that they were excited about, that's one of those things that I do remember about some of those big Subway Series moments, including the Subway World Series when we had a full house and Benny Agbayani gets a big hit and the place is absolutely rocking. That's what I remember about it. And, like I said, I may have blocked out some of the stuff that happened on the other side of town. I remember a 12-pitch at bat by Paul O'Neill to continue that, that first game. And,
Cone coming out of the bullpen
losses.
To get Piazza.
Yeah, some tough losses, yeah. And he didn't stay in to face me. They pulled him. Joe, you didn't have to face three batters back then, so Joe let him get Mike out, and then he pulled him.
Now, look, we're sitting here. We're right in front of the Oculus. We have a great atmosphere. When you played in this rivalry, in the Subway Series, did you live in the city? And do you remember the energy that you felt living in the city from all the fans, both sides?
You know what, I did. My first year, I lived in the city until after the series, and I went out to Connecticut. And then, I was here during 9/11, which the atmosphere in the city, and I was in the city all the time for that. And then when I came back to the Mets, I lived in the Upper West Side again, and it was always sort of undoubtedly, whether you're in your own neighborhood and people get to know you as a player or personality in some right, there's this conversation that happens that you've seen, that we've all seen, that somebody that I've never met before feels like he knows me because he sees me and he has, some kind of wisdom to impart on me before going to the ballpark that day. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're not, but always great energy in the city when the Subway Series is, about to happen.
All right, Todd, as promised, time for the We Got Now question presented by New Balance. So up to this point, which Mets player has impressed you the most?
Up to this point of this season, I expected the things that I've seen out of Alonso, although he's been very good, even a little bit better than what we could have expected out of him, because I've seen him go on runs like this before in the past. The guy that has impressed the heck out of me that I love every time he comes in the game is Max Kranick. And I mean, that's a name that everybody was like, wait, who? This is a guy that wasn't expected to make the team, comes in any situation, takes the ball, goes multiple innings, has twice had to come from the bullpen with an injury timeout, warm up on the mound, and still be effective. This guy, I think, is a gamer, and he's a New Yorker, and I think he's feeling great about being in a Mets uniform, so I pull for Max.
Todd, we know you got a pregame show to go do, not too far away.
Great to spend a little time with you guys.
Absolutely. Good to see you again, Todd.
Todd, good seeing you, pal. All the way downtown at the World Trade Center, Gregg Caserta, Anthony Recker with you on the MLB Network Podcast presented by New Balance. We'll break down more of the Yankees and Mets, what they've done up to this point, and what's still to come when we come back. Worn by players like Tristan Casas and Jeremy Pena to meet the demand of elite ball players, the New Balance Fresh Foam 3000 V7 is the comfortable cleat to help you stay focused on your gameplay. The 3000 V7 is designed to deliver comfort and unrelenting confidence on the field with an innovative coated mesh that offers soft breathability and durability. The Fresh Foam cushioning is precision engineered to deliver an ultra cushion lightweight ride, while a gusseted tongue keeps you centered. Learn more and purchase the 3000 at newbalance.com. So now we've gotten past the quarter mark of the season. Expectations for, let's start with the Mets, where they are right now. Talked about it earlier. Again, the margin for error for them is a lot slimmer because they're dealing with the Phillies and the Braves, whereas the Yankees are in a wide open division. You can make the argument right now that the AL East is the softest division in baseball at this point in the season.
I think you could. I would say expectations for me for the Mets, I think what we've seen from them so far, from a pitching standpoint, I don't know if I can expect that to continue. So what I'll say is I'm going to need this offense to they've clicked, and I think they have a lot of consistent pieces. I just need to see them a little bit better with runners in scoring position. And as long as they can show that, which because the pitching has carried them, I think at times to this point of the season so far, I think the offense has that ability to kick it into a next gear and carry them at times when the pitching won't be there. Because look, nobody pitches like this for a full season. So it's not going to happen. So they're going to need some help. And, come trade deadline, I do expect them to go out, at least find a starting pitcher and a reliever or two. And so from that perspective, that's where I think then the pitching can hopefully carry the load again. So it's really going to be about, can they follow that ebb and flow of a season where when one side of the ball isn't there firing on all cylinders, can the other side pick it up? Right now, what we've seen from this Mets team is they can do that. So I expect them to get to October, to have the opportunity to make a run. And if any team is going to give, the Dodgers a hard time, can it be the Mets? If they get the right pitching at the deadline, absolutely.
They had their moments in the NLCS last year.
100%. They gave them a heck of a series. Yeah. They gave them really good games. And so it's going to be, can they make the moves necessary to put themselves in a situation where we take them seriously come October against the powerhouses in the NL? Because the NL is full of powerhouses.
It's loaded. It's not fair right now. The AL is not what it's been in years past. You've got the Yankees, you've got the Tigers, you've got the Mariners.
Yep.
And the Rangers may be starting to turn the corner a little bit after a brutal start to the offensive part of the season. Bringing in Brett Boone has clearly helped things there. But now you look at the Yankees, and we wonder, all right, there's regression with a lot of this stuff. You talked about health. You talked about nobody can pitch like this for a full season. Can Aaron Judge do what he's doing for a full season? Because if there's anybody that I would bet on, he'd be the guy.
He'd be the only one that you could say could. Him, maybe Ohtani. Right? But realistically, to carry the load that he's carrying right now and to be doing it in a way that seems so effortless. Night in and night out, the guy doesn't look like he's breaking a sweat. And it's so incredible because he lost Juan Soto in that lineup, right? I understand that he was hitting behind Juan Soto, right? So it wasn't like Juan was behind him and there's, he's got all this, it's a different lineup structure in that sense. But he doesn't have Juan in front of him anymore, but he's still putting together an unbelievable year. I don't expect him to be hitting 430 at the end of the year with a 1250 OPS, and by that point, I don't even know what he's on pace for, probably 75 homers. I don't even know, but I don't expect that. But to say that this Yankee offense can't continue the run that they're on, no, I wouldn't say that. I think this team has a lot of pieces, even in guys like Bellinger, Volpe. Austin Wells at times hasn't looked like the guy that he did at times last year. I think there's pieces in this lineup that can still step up. So then it's going to be, can they, from a pitching standpoint, put enough together? And I think it's interesting to think that because at the beginning of the year, I thought that starting rotation was their strength. I thought this was one of the best starting rotations in baseball. And right now, they're still pitching well. They still have an elite 2, maybe 3 with Rodon and Fried for sure. I think Schmidt can get there. But this team right now, I think they're a little bit limited in where they can go. The thing is, who isn't limited in the AL? They've got an easier path, right, to the World Series, at least that you can see visually. Now, could Boston turn it on? Yeah, I'm scared of Boston if I'm the Yankees because they got a really good – they got a lot of talent. young talent coming up, and they got a lot of talent in that rotation
And
if
a
they get
really
healthy.
good manager.
100%, and they've been there, done it, right? With some of those guys. Bregman, huge addition for them.
Unbelievable.
They have the pieces. They can make a run at them. Now, is the rest of the AL going to catch up? I don't know. The Mariners are dangerous. They don't have. I don't know if the offense can be consistent. The Rangers, their pitching can come and go. I think the offense can be better.
Listen, we saw the Royals steal a series in Baltimore last year,
that's
and
the
now
thing.
they're starting to come back around. Bobby Witt Jr.'s doing what he
Superstar.
always does.
Superstar.
Like, he's the dude.
Yeah.
I'm still mind blown by all of this because we're down here at the World Trade Center. We've got the Yankees and the Mets in first place, and we've got the Knicks deep into the playoffs. What decade are we in?
we went back to the 80s? No, the Yankees weren't good in the 80s. I don't even know what decade this would be. No, it's really fun to see the energy in the city, to see what this series means, and to see, obviously, New York getting to celebrate. This is a sports town, man.
It has been an unbelievable weekend in New York. Time for us to wrap up on the MLB Network Podcast presented by New Balance. Great job by our entire crew in downtown New York City at the World Trade Center. For my guy, Anthony Recker, I'm Gregg Caserta, and we'll talk to you soon.